Following the American Revolution, politicians in the East looked at the vast, unexplored frontier and did what politicians do best. They drew lines on paper. They believed they could slice up the wilderness with the stroke of a pen. This document is the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. It laid out a mathematical grid to divide the newly acquired frontier into future states, attempting to organize the unknown before anyone had even surveyed it. This map, the Mitchell Map of 1755, was the standard reference of the era, but it contained a massive geographic error, placing the southern tip of Lake Michigan 26 miles too far north. Relying on this, Congress mandated the new borders be defined by a line running due east from that tip. But on the ground, that imaginary line ran straight through dense, waterlogged timberlands known as the Great Black Swamp. It also sliced through the sovereign homelands of the Shawnee and Potawatomi nations, who had already lived there for generations. These paper boundaries ignored the thousand-mile wilderness and the ancient nations already holding the land. A line on a map is only as real as a government's ability to reach it. In the summer of 1812, the United States tasked General William Hull with invading British Canada from the west. He had to march a 1,600-man army 200 miles north from Ohio to Detroit. Because the British controlled the warships on the Great Lakes, Hull had no naval support. His entire invasion force, along with their heavy supplies, had to move across the untamed interior. His route forced the army directly into the Black Swamp, an area 50 miles deep and 30 miles wide, filled with rotting trees and submerged foliage. It took his men 30 grueling days just to chop a primitive path through the muck. Reaching the Maumee River, an exhausted Hull tried to bypass the remaining overland trek. He loaded his sick soldiers, his heavy provisions, and his official battle plans onto a schooner named the Cuyahoga, sending it ahead toward Detroit. The British at Fort Malden had already received word that war was declared. They easily intercepted the Cuyahoga, instantly capturing Hull's supplies and reading his exact strategy. Compounding Hull's logistical nightmare was the Shawnee leader, Tecumseh, who had allied with the British. Tecumseh understood the dense forest environment and weaponized it to break American morale. He repeatedly marched a force of 600 warriors in continuous loops through the brush, emerging and disappearing among the trees. To the isolated Americans, it created the illusion of 1,800 men surrounding them. Starved of his overland provisions and convinced he was facing an overwhelming force, Hull surrendered the fort at Detroit without firing a single shot. The American campaign in the Northwest only recovered the following year, when Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry destroyed the British fleet at the Battle of Lake Erie, securing safe transport across the water. Perry's success demonstrated the governing rule of the American frontier: whoever controls the water controls the map. By the 1830s, the flawed map from a century earlier created a new crisis. This area is the Toledo Strip, 468 square miles of land claimed simultaneously by the state of Ohio and the Michigan Territory. Controlling the mouth of the Maumee River meant commanding the trade between the interior and the Great Lakes. For both governments, this waterway was the only thing that made the 468 square miles of swamp worth the trouble. The disagreement quickly escalated. Michigan's 24-year-old governor, Stevens T. Mason, and Ohio Governor Robert Lucas both raised armed militias and marched them toward the disputed border. Michigan passed the Pains and Penalties Act, a law declaring that any Ohioan attempting to settle or exercise authority in the Toledo Strip would face a $1,000 fine or 5 years of hard labor. The standoff reached its peak at the bloodless Battle of Phillips Corners, where Michigan troops arrested 9 Ohio surveyors. In a later scuffle, an Ohio loyalist named Tu Stickney stabbed a Michigan sheriff with a penknife, the only physical casualty of the entire conflict. While the Toledo War consisted entirely of posturing, warrants, and angry newspaper editorials, it successfully blocked Michigan's petition for statehood and forced the federal government into a political deadlock. President Andrew Jackson had to step in and defuse an armed standoff between a recognized state and an impatient territory. His decision came down to simple electoral math. Ohio was a powerful swing state preparing for an upcoming presidential election, while Michigan, as a territory, had 0 electoral votes to leverage. This photograph shows the remote, rugged timberlands of the Upper Peninsula. Jackson forced Michigan to accept this northern wilderness in exchange for its statehood, permanently awarding the Toledo Strip to Ohio. In the end, a cartographic error and a few thousand electoral votes defined where the Midwest begins and ends. Our borders are less a reflection of the land itself than a record of the political trades required to tame it.